This is test ID 3B, component ID 80. It's the pre-catalyst oxygen sensor, B2S1. It's the delta or change in O2 voltage. Component ID 80 indicates we have a minimum limit. This is the left or front on the traverse mounted engine sensor when your dual O2 sensors are used for fuel control. The PCM times the change in O2 voltage during warm-up. Special note to remember, JTEC sensors have 5 volts present when they're cold, but you can't measure them with a lab scope and you can't measure them with a generic scan tool. You may want to go back and review the JTEC O2 sensor operation section. The values aren't converted into measurement units by Chrysler, so use the data as a relative indication of performance. We'll use actual vehicle data. Take a look at our 3B here. Under test value, highlighted in yellow, is 14. Under the minimum, to the right of it, is 13. We are barely passing the minimum spec. Now, you may want to test this because this looks like an impending failure. As we take a look at these, we're going to be using a lab scope, and we're going to look at all of them. Right now, we're looking at fuel control. Take a look at that. That's up there. That right there is where we turn the key on. At key on, the voltage jumps up. If we look at the scale on the right, we found it's about 1.8 volts. Now, we're showing you all these things because we're going to be using all of them together, including heater ramps, during our analysis with a scope tester. So we're going to use scope patterns to direct us to a problem area. Now, we can't always identify it with some of these patterns we're going to be using, but in this case, it's pretty accurate. Let's go look at our scope patterns to see how to verify this heater performance. We're going to start off this test drive totally cold and see what happens. Now, we're grafting the fuel control in green, catalyst in red, and the heater current is in blue. We just started the engine and we just noticed our first activity. Now, we're going to stop and talk about this a second when we get it in the center of the screen because there's something unusual about JTEC O2 sensors. Let's take a look at the voltage levels on these two sensors. Now, we'll stop it here and have a look at it. The fuel control is just under 2 volts and the catalyst monitor is about 1.5. Cold startup on JTEC does not start off the same as other sensors, so that's something we need to keep in mind. We notice that the heater current is about 1 amp by the time we get to end of this scale. Let's start up and let this run again and continue studying this. What's going to happen is we're timing, this is a test timing to activity, and we see the first of the activity starting to happen now on the green trace. We're dropping down in voltage scales. Once we get under a volt, we need to change scales so we can see true activity. But this is the first sign of activity. Notice that our heater current is staying current. This is a test of heater current. The heater is what's responsible for heating this up. Now we start seeing some movement. We're going to go down to the 1 volt scale so we can really see what's going on with our fuel control. And as you can see coming across the screen, we are now entering fuel control and we have activity. So since this was a time to activity, this is the end of your test.